He stepped forward saying it was just for fun, but he had no idea that the man he was challenging would shatter all his training, confidence, and ego in just 1 second, without anger, without using force. This wasn't a movie scene. It was a real-life lesson, one the black belt would remember for the rest of his life. Just 2 minutes later, the seminar hall was buzzing with quiet excitement. Rows of folding chairs filled the room, and along the walls stood students in crisp GIs, black belts tied neatly at their waists. This wasn't just another martial arts workshop. Today's guest was Steven Seagal, invited to speak about discipline, control, and the mindset behind real combat. Seagal stood near the center mat, dressed simply in black, calm, and unbothered. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. His posture was relaxed, hands loosely at his sides, as if he were just another instructor waiting for class to begin. He spoke slowly, emphasizing balance, awareness, and avoiding unnecessary conflict. Most people listen with respect, but not everyone. Near the back of the room stood a younger man, tall, athletic, confident to the point of arrogance. Around his waist was a black belt, worn proudly, almost aggressively. He had been training for years, competing in tournaments, earning praise wherever he went. To him, this seminar wasn't about learning. It was about proving something. As Seagal finished answering a question, the man stepped forward. "Mr. Seagal," he said loudly, drawing attention. "I've watched your movies. I know you have a background in martial arts too." A few people shifted in their seats. Seagal nodded politely. "That's right." The man smirked. "No disrespect," he added, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But a lot of people say what you do only works in movies." The room went quiet. Seagal tilted his head slightly. "Everyone is entitled to an opinion." The black belt took another step closer. "So I was thinking maybe we could test it. Just for fun." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. "For fun," Seagal repeated calmly. "Yeah," the man said, shrugging. "Light sparring. Nothing serious. I just want to see if your techniques really work against someone trained." Phones started coming out. People sensed something was about to happen. Seagal didn't react immediately. He looked around the room, at the students, the instructors, the organizers. His expression wasn't angry. It was measured, thoughtful. "This seminar isn't about proving dominance," he said evenly. "It's about understanding control." The black belt chuckled. "That sounds like a no." Before Seagal could respond, someone from the crowd shouted, "Let him try." Another voice followed. "Yeah, just a quick round." The pressure mounted. All eyes were now on Seagal. He exhaled slowly, not annoyed, not nervous, but aware. What no one in that room realized was that this just-for-fun challenge was about to turn into a lesson none of them would forget. The room no longer felt like a seminar hall. It felt like an arena. The black belt stood on the edge of the mat, rolling his shoulders as if warming up for a fight he had already won in his head. His confidence wasn't quiet or disciplined. It was loud, restless, and hungry for validation. He bounced lightly on his feet, glancing around to make sure everyone was watching. And they were. Students leaned forward in their chairs. Instructors exchanged uneasy looks. Phones were now openly raised, recording from every angle. What had started as a respectful martial arts seminar was slowly slipping into something else. Steven Seagal remained still. He hadn't stepped onto the mat. He hadn't changed his stance. His hands rested calmly at his sides, his expression unreadable. The contrast between the two men couldn't have been sharper. One radiating controlled stillness, the other overflowing with restless energy. The black belt laughed softly. "Relax, everyone," he said to the crowd. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone. This is just a friendly test." He turned back to Seagal. "No pressure. If you don't want to do it, that's fine too. I get it." The words sounded polite, but the tone wasn't. There was a challenge hidden inside them, a quiet insult dressed up as courtesy. A few people in the audience murmured. "That was disrespectful," someone whispered. Another voice replied, "He's trying to bait him." Seagal finally spoke again, his voice calm and steady. "Skill doesn't need to announce itself," he said. "And real training teaches restraint." The black belt smirked. "With all due respect, restraint doesn't help when someone actually comes at you." He stepped onto the mat without permission. That single move shifted everything. The organizers glanced nervously at each other, unsure whether to intervene. One of them started to say something, but stopped when the crowd grew louder. "Let's see it," someone shouted. "Yeah, just one exchange. Come on, sensei." The black belt raised his hands in a loose fighting stance, bouncing lightly. "I'll go easy," he said, grinning. "You don't even have to move much." A few people laughed, nervously, uncertain whether they should be entertained or uncomfortable. Seagal looked at the man for a long moment, not with anger, not with fear, but with something closer to disappointment. "You're confusing movement with understanding," he said quietly. The black belt rolled his eyes. "That sounds like something someone says when they don't want to get embarrassed." That was the moment the energy in the room turned sharp. The man began shadowboxing lightly, throwing mock jabs in the air, exaggerating his speed for the cameras. Each movement was a performance, designed to impress the crowd rather than demonstrate control. "See," he said loudly. "This is what real training looks like." Seagal didn't respond. Instead, he slowly stepped forward, not onto the mat yet, just close enough to make his presence felt. The room fell quieter, as if everyone instinctively sensed that something important was happening. "You've trained hard," Seagal said. "I can see that. But confidence without humility is dangerous." The black belt scoffed. "And humility without effectiveness is useless." A few people gasped at that. The organizers finally stepped in. "All right, let's calm this down," one of them said. "This wasn't planned." The black belt raised a hand. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. If nothing happens, we move on. Fair." He looked directly at Seagal. "Just for fun." The phrase hung in the air again, but now it sounded hollow. Seagal glanced around the room one last time. At the students who came to learn. At the teachers who valued discipline. At the cameras waiting for a spectacle. "This isn't about winning," he said slowly. "But if I agree, it will be under my rules." The black belt's grin widened. "Of course." But his eyes said something else. They said he believed the outcome was already decided. Comments: which city? The noise in the room slowly faded, replaced by a heavy, uncomfortable silence. Everyone could feel it, the moment where things either stopped or crossed a line they couldn't come back from. The black belt stood firmly on the mat now, feet planted, shoulders squared. His confidence hadn't disappeared, but it had sharpened into something more serious. This was no longer a joke to him. It was a test of pride. Across from him, Steven Seagal finally stepped onto the mat. He didn't rush. He didn't stretch. He didn't raise his hands. He simply walked forward and stopped a few feet away. That alone unsettled some people. One of the instructors whispered, "He's not even taking a stance." The black belt noticed it too and chuckled. "You sure you're ready?" he asked. "I don't want people saying I took advantage." Seagal looked at him calmly. "If you were truly ready," he replied, "you wouldn't need reassurance." A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. The organizers hesitated on the sidelines, clearly conflicted. One of them finally spoke up. "We need to be clear. This is controlled. No strikes to the head. No injuries." The black belt nodded quickly. "Of course." I said, "just for fun." But his body language told a different story. His hands were already raised. His weight shifted forward. His eyes locked onto Seagal's centerline, searching for an opening. Seagal turned slightly toward the audience. "Martial arts," he said evenly, "isn't about overpowering someone. It's about timing, balance, and intention." The black belt exhaled sharply, impatient. "We get it. Philosophy. Can we start?" A few people laughed nervously. Seagal looked back at him. "One condition," he said. The black belt raised an eyebrow. "Name it." "You attack first," Seagal said. "However you like." That surprised the room. The black belt grinned. "That's generous." But beneath the smile, something flickered, uncertainty. He had expected rules. Distance. A stance. Not this. The two men stood facing each other now, close enough that the tension felt physical. You could hear someone's phone camera adjusting focus. You could hear a chair creak as someone leaned forward too far. Time stretched. "Whenever you're ready," Seagal said softly. The black belt hesitated, just for a split second. That hesitation didn't go unnoticed. The crowd sensed it too. Then the black belt stepped back, shaking out his arms, trying to reset his confidence. "All right," he said, louder than necessary. "Don't blink." He took a breath. His posture tightened. His ego demanded action. In his mind, this was simple. Speed beats age. Aggression beats calm. Pressure breaks patience. He lunged forward suddenly. Fast, decisive, committed. And in that instant, the entire room seemed to freeze. People expected a clash, a struggle, at least resistance. But Seagal didn't step back. He didn't block. He didn't brace. He simply shifted, subtly, almost lazily, as if stepping out of the way of something inevitable. Gasps echoed across the hall. The black belt felt it immediately. His attack didn't land where it was supposed to. His balance shifted forward just a little too far. His momentum carried him past his center. It wasn't dramatic, but it was wrong. Very wrong. His eyes widened, not in pain, not in fear, but in realization. Something wasn't going according to plan. The crowd leaned in, silent now, phones forgotten for a brief moment. And the black belt understood, a second too late, that this wasn't a performance anymore. This was a lesson, and it had already begun. The moment the black belt felt his balance shift, panic crept in, not the obvious kind, but the subtle, creeping realization that control was slipping away. He tried to recover quickly, planting his foot harder, forcing his weight back into position. Years of training kicked in, muscle memory screaming for him to regain dominance. To the crowd, it still looked like an even exchange. But to the trained eye, something had already gone wrong. Steven Seagal hadn't moved much at all. That was the unsettling part. As the black belt adjusted, he threw a second attack. Faster, sharper, driven by frustration. He expected resistance this time. A block. A clash. Something solid. Instead, he felt nothing. Seagal's body turned just enough to redirect the force. One hand guided the incoming arm off its line, not with strength, but with timing so precise it looked effortless. The motion was small, almost invisible, yet devastatingly effective. The black belt stumbled half a step forward. A collective gasp rippled through the room. "Did you see that?" someone whispered. "He didn't even try," another replied. The black belt's jaw tightened. Embarrassment burned in his chest. He wasn't supposed to be the one off balance. He was the younger one, the faster one, the competitor. He reset again, this time abandoning finesse. If technique wasn't working, power would. With a sharp exhale, he rushed forward, committing fully, shoulders down, weight driving through his legs. The kind of movement meant to overwhelm, to force compliance through sheer aggression. The crowd held its breath. Seagal waited. At the last possible moment, he stepped in, not back, closing the distance in a way that startled the black belt. A hand connected lightly to the attacker's wrist, the other guiding the elbow. There was no strike, no visible force. Yet suddenly, the black belt felt the world tilt. His spine twisted unnaturally, his feet scrambling for traction. His own momentum betrayed him, folding his posture inward. In an instant, he found himself bent forward, arm extended, pressure building in a joint he could no longer control. A sharp inhale escaped his lips. Not pain, surprise. The room erupted in noise. "Oh, no way. How did he do that?" Seagal's voice cut through the chaos, calm and instructional. "Slow down," he said quietly. "You're fighting yourself." The words landed harder than any throw. The black belt froze, unsure whether to continue or stop. His pride screamed at him to resist, to power through. But his body sent a different message, one of vulnerability. For the first time since stepping onto the mat, doubt crept into his eyes. Seagal released the pressure and stepped back, giving him space. That decision stunned the crowd even more than the technique. "He let him go," someone murmured. The black belt straightened slowly, breathing heavier now. His face flushed, not from exertion, but from realization. He had attacked 3 times, and each time, he had lost ground without landing anything meaningful. This wasn't a contest of strength. It was a conversation, and he wasn't fluent in the language. He forced a laugh, trying to mask the shift. "Okay," he said, nodding. "You've got good timing." Seagal met his eyes. "Timing comes from awareness," he replied. "Awareness comes from humility." The words echoed through the hall. The black belt nodded again, though his confidence was cracking. Around them, the crowd buzzed with excitement and disbelief. Phones were back up, recording every second. Comment black belt or Seagal. The black belt stood quietly for a moment, chest rising and falling faster than before. The playful grin he had worn earlier was gone, replaced by a tight, focused expression. He nodded once, as if convincing himself that he still had control of the situation. But the room could feel it. Something had shifted. The crowd wasn't cheering anymore. They were watching, intently, almost reverently, as if they'd realized they weren't witnessing a sparring match, but a lesson unfolding in real time. The black belt adjusted his stance, lowering it slightly, trying to stabilize himself. He circled now instead of charging, eyes scanning Steven Seagal more cautiously. His movements were slower, measured, the movements of someone no longer certain. Seagal mirrored none of it. He stood relaxed, weight evenly distributed, hands loose. He wasn't hunting an opening. He was waiting. The black belt made his move, a feint this time, testing reactions. Seagal didn't bite. A second feint followed, sharper. Still nothing. Frustration crept back in. With a sudden burst, the black belt committed to a full combination, stepping in aggressively, hoping speed would overwhelm control. His intent was clear now: regain dominance, reclaim dignity, end this on his terms. What happened next took less than 2 seconds. As the black belt stepped in, Seagal shifted slightly to the side, aligning himself with the attacker's momentum. One hand guided the wrist downward, the other controlled the elbow, not forcefully, not dramatically, but with devastating precision. The black belt felt his balance vanish. His feet tangled. His center collapsed. And then he was airborne. It wasn't a violent throw. It was clean, controlled, almost gentle. He landed on the mat with a sharp exhale, the sound echoing through the silent hall. For a split second, no one spoke. Then the room erupted. Oh my, that was effortless. He didn't even look like he tried. The black belt lay there, staring at the ceiling, stunned. Not injured, not hurt, just humbled. Seagal didn't follow him down. He didn't pin him. He didn't apply pressure. He simply stood there, calm as ever. Get up slowly, Seagal said. There's no rush. The words carried no mockery, no superiority, only instruction. The black belt sat up, then rose carefully to his feet. His face was red now, but not from anger. It was the flush of someone confronting a truth they hadn't expected. I didn't think, he started, then stopped. Seagal waited patiently. I didn't think it would feel like that, the black belt admitted quietly. Seagal nodded. Most people don't, he said. They confuse power with force. The crowd had fallen silent again, listening. When you rush, Seagal continued, you give everything away. Balance, timing, intention. The black belt swallowed hard. He bowed his head slightly, not formally, but instinctively. That bow said more than any words could. Around them, phones captured the moment, but the energy had changed. This was no longer entertainment. It was education. The black belt straightened, taking a breath. One more, he said softly. Please. The room tensed. Seagal studied him for a moment, then nodded. This time, he said, slow down. They reset. The black belt moved forward again, cautiously now, deliberately. No ego, no performance. But it was already too late. As he reached, Seagal stepped inside his space, closing the distance effortlessly. A subtle turn of the hips, a gentle redirection of force. And suddenly, the black belt found himself immobilized. Not slammed, not thrown, just stopped. His arm was controlled, his posture broken, his options gone. He froze. Seagal leaned in slightly. Feel that? He asked quietly. The black belt nodded. Yes. That's control, Seagal said. Not domination. He released him immediately and stepped back. The black belt staggered away, shaking his head in disbelief. The lesson had landed. Fully, unmistakably. He had challenged just for fun. But now he understood the cost of underestimating mastery. And the crowd knew it too. The black belt stepped back, hands resting on his thighs as he caught his breath. The room was silent now, not the awkward silence from before, but a deep, respectful quiet. Everyone had seen it. There was no denying what had just happened. Confidence had turned into caution. Ego had turned into awareness. Across from him, Steven Seagal stood exactly where he had been moments earlier. Same posture, same calm expression. It was as if nothing had changed for him at all. But for the black belt, everything had changed. He straightened slowly and nodded, this time without a smile. "I understand now," he said, his voice lower, steadier. "I came in thinking this was about testing skill." Seagal met his gaze. "And what is it about now?" The black belt paused. "About respect." A murmur of approval moved through the crowd. Seagal nodded once. "Good," he said. "That's where real training begins." The organizers finally stepped onto the mat, relief visible on their faces. One of them raised a hand. "All right, everyone, let's stop here." No one objected. No one needed more proof. The black belt took a step forward and did something no one expected. He bowed. Not exaggerated, not theatrical, just a simple, sincere bow of acknowledgement. Seagal returned it. That small exchange drew louder applause than any throw or technique had. The tension that once filled the room dissolved, replaced by something lighter: admiration, understanding, humility. People lowered their phones, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others smiling quietly. The black belt turned toward the audience. "I thought being fast made me dangerous," he said honestly. "I was wrong." Seagal placed a hand on his shoulder briefly. "Speed fades," he said. "Awareness deepens." The words stayed with everyone in the room. As the black belt stepped off the mat, the crowd parted instinctively, not mocking him, not judging him, but respecting him for learning the lesson the hard way. Behind him, Seagal addressed the room one last time. "Martial arts isn't about proving who's better," he said. "It's about discovering how little force you actually need." Applause filled the hall, steady, genuine, earned. Comment yes or a no. As people began to disperse, the black belt lingered near the edge of the mat. Someone asked him quietly, "Do you regret it?" He thought for a moment, then shook his head. "No," he said. "I needed it." That answer spread just as fast as the video clips would later online. Because what started as a challenge, just for fun, had ended as something far more powerful. A reminder that real mastery doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself, calmly, unmistakably, and without ego. By the next morning, the video was everywhere. Short clips from the seminar flooded social media, slowed down, replayed, analyzed frame by frame. People paused at the exact moments where movement met stillness, where speed met balance, where confidence quietly unraveled into humility. The captions were ruthless and honest. "This is real martial arts. Ego versus experience. Experience wins." He didn't overpower him. He educated him. Millions watched the footage of Steven Seagal standing calm and unmoved while chaos collapsed around him. What stunned viewers most wasn't the technique. It was the restraint. No aggression. No celebration. No need to prove anything. Martial artists weighed in from every discipline. Boxers talked about timing. Judoka pointed out balance. Aikido practitioners nodded knowingly. But the loudest response came from people outside martial arts altogether. "This applies to life," one comment read. "You don't need to dominate to win," said another. Meanwhile, the black belt woke up to a very different kind of attention. At first, he avoided his phone. He expected mockery, criticism, memes. But when he finally checked, what he found surprised him. Yes, there were jokes, but there was also respect. Props for owning it. He learned instead of making excuses. That takes courage. Later that day, he posted a short message himself. "I went in confident. I came out educated. Real mastery is quieter than ego. I'm grateful for the lesson." That post changed the narrative. The story stopped being about someone getting humbled and became about someone growing. At the seminar venue, instructors replayed the moment for their students, not to glorify the outcome, but to explain the principle behind it. "Notice how nothing is forced," one instructor said. "That's the difference between knowing techniques and understanding movement." As for Seagal, he never commented publicly on the incident. He didn't need to. Those who understood what they had witnessed didn't require explanation, and those who didn't would one day. Weeks later, The black belt returned to training with a different mindset. He moved slower. He listened more. He asked questions he never thought to ask before. His ego hadn't been crushed. It had been reshaped. And that was the real victory. Comment, respect.